Hi, I'm Matt from hockeyreviews.ca, and this is the Warrior G7, specifically the 7.1 RTL comparison review against the G6 6.1 Pro Plus. Obviously, these two are the same family, and it's kind of a direct movement from 6 to the 7. I had the 6 normal one here, not the 0.1 or anything right here, but I didn't order 2 gloves this time. I preferred the 6.1 glove, so I decided to go with that with a different palm. So we have a 90-degree palm in here versus the 75 that was in the previous one. I decided to test that out and take a look at those. So this will be a comparison review against this one to see what has changed, if anything, between these two gloves specifically. I did a wrist mod on here that I kind of did on this one and I talked about on the review of this one, but we're going to skip the 6. If you want to see just the 7 versus the 0.1, check out the video on this one that goes over these 2 lines and my review of this. I go over it with this. So the differences between the G7, which would be the next one of this, and this one, which is the 7.1, are basically the same anyways. So you can just watch that video and it will kind of keep you up to date with what you're looking for. Before we begin anything in here, huge thanks to the person who helped make this possible. Without them, this content would be much more difficult and possibly not possible. So huge thank you to them. And I greatly appreciate you helping me out with this. So just to start this off, since I always start, and it's the least important thing in the grand scheme of things, is the graphics and aesthetics. I've always said Warrior graphics are kind of too simple and a little plain, and they have definitely gotten a lot better with this line. And I talked about that in the blocker and in the pad videos as well, but we'll continue on here. Now, the difference between this glove and this glove, total graphics, isn't that huge, just because the palm itself is kind of always one piece. And when you're looking at it, it kind of does an interesting thing in terms of like matching. So obviously this doesn't match, but when you turn it like this, it does match. And that is kind of the part where that palm is all one graphic also shows up down here. So when you're in the butterfly kind of blocking position, you can see the gloves line up pretty good and it makes sense. And I think this looks pretty solid overall and is a pretty good job matching between them. Yes, it doesn't work in fingers up or anything, but in that blocking position, it is going to work and look good. Now, I always comment on how this one should be broken up, and it's a lot of white or whatever this color is down there on the pads. It's not that bad here. It is a lot on the glove, but on the blocker and the glove, without it breaking up, it doesn't look that bad. It'd be a lot harder to do on the glove in terms of breaking up any of these graphics, because it's kind of just putting extra graphic on the palm, which isn't necessarily the best thing. It's not at the end of the world of anything, and I think the graphics on here do look pretty good. I also do like the little details on here. You can see the textured, like I called it embossing in the last video. It might be, but it's like the press. So they press the Gen Pro so it has different designs and like 3D texture on it. They did it previously as well, and I think it's kind of cool that they have that every generation. Just kind of a nice little touch. You don't have to do, but it looks interesting as well. Core Tech, which are Coreshorts, and people have heard of these before. They were labeled under Under Armour before. Now Bauer sells hockey specific one, but Core themselves sell their own line of pants and supportive clothing and apparel. Basically, this stuff helps you with growing strains, growing pulls, and helps keep your hips tight and everything like that. And speaking of injuries, I kind of pulled a growing playing in the playoffs a few months ago and have had to keep using these Core Tech shorts to make sure my growing doesn't get worse. When I don't wear them, I can feel it and it hurts kind of to walk the next day. With these, keeps everything nice and tight and keeps everything from stretching out too far and getting injured. So these have been a huge savior for me. Check out the link in the description to their website and use my coupon code that's in there to get a discount, and I'll put it on the screen here. It helps support myself and the channel so I can make content and doing real reviews, but also you get a solid product that I use all the time. So these gloves are very similar to one another. I did get different internal palms on them. They're not removable palms. This is 75-degree break. This is a 90-degree break. So according to that break angle, people will say this is a 580. I'll get to that in a little bit. But for differences on here, there's honestly so few that it's almost really hard to tell these two gloves apart if you weren't really looking for specific things. And that's not a bad thing. This whole line, including the blocker, was really revamped from the G5 to the G6. And honestly, they didn't really have to do a ton on the gloves to move them to here to make nice small improvements. I'm not sure if the interiors are different or anything. That's pretty like not super hard, and this one is slightly harder. So I'm not sure if they put composite in the cuff here versus over here, because you can see how this squeezes a bit versus this, which is staying a lot harder. So I'm not sure if they changed the foams in this or added composite to it, because that is very hard there, and that definitely just doesn't feel as hard. So I'm not sure what went on here, but something is slightly different on this cuff. I think they upgrade the foams back here and really stiffen them, because that's not moving at all, where this one is a little bit. So while these do look like very similar gloves, obviously there is an internal change on there that has made a pretty solid improvement. Interestingly enough, I'm going to bring this glove back really quickly. This glove was stiffer on the cuff than what was on the 0.1s, this one, and I called that out in my review. So interesting to see how this has stiffened up. I also had a previous glove I've recently reviewed where I showed, I think it was actually down here, a puck hitting here, bending it back, and a puck going in. So it happens, and you do want a stiffer cuff on this, and this is a solid cuff on there. And looking at the rest of the palm and everything on here and kind of in here, I can't tell a difference between the two. I've kind of squeezed it, I kind of felt it around. It all feels very, very similar to each other. So I don't think really anything has changed going on there. For the T, same thing, idea here. I actually screwed this up. I meant to order a single T on this, just like this one was, because I meant to get a single T on the 7 to be an opposite comparison to this one. And I totally screwed that up. So that was supposed to be a single T, and I screwed up my order form. I got a little too excited. Clearly, you can see the glove shape and the pocket on that is the exact same as what is on this one. And it's that very wide, obviously, shape compared to what the other one was. But again, watch that video if you want to see the differences between the 7 and the 7.1. It will be the 6 and the 6.1. It's the same kind of differences there. And continuing on that T, just to talk about kind of what is in this T. They don't have reinforcement options on the T, but their T's are pretty stiff as is. You can kind of bend them like this, but they don't really want to stay. And the nice thing about these, you can see how they're kind of flared open, and this one will show better because it's more used. But when you open it up like that, you can see how there's puck marks right here. Hopefully that's showing up on camera, and it's flared that way. So that way when a puck hits this, there's a better chance of that kind of staying where it is and coming in here versus hitting the backside and folding it over. So that's a solid design on there. Generally, you would want this to be a little bit like that too, but that's a nitpick, and it's still very solid all around. And same with this. You can see how open that becomes and how pucks will kind of funnel into that and go into the pocket more because of that shape. And the construction of this does have plastic through here. At least it feels like a plastic, and if it isn't, it's still pretty strong and like sturdy there. So that's going through all through there as well. And you have your just T going through there. I put skate lace on this one just to be a bit different. I had skate lace on this one, and this one wasn't. So just to make that a little bit different. For puck coverage, I've had zero issues with this glove whatsoever. It is very good all the way through. And as you can see, very solid and a lot better than some 60 degree, 90 degree kind of that shape 590, 580 gloves that we see out there. This is solid and really seals the ice well for that. Going on to the backhand is somewhere where you can actually see one of the differences, and this is a very welcome change on my end. I wear a Warrior X4 Pro Plus chest protector, big bulky arms on those things. You can see how this cuff comes up a lot higher than this one. It's also a lot shorter. When you look on the inside, it really kind of shows that off. This one is a lot shorter than what this one is and doesn't cover as much as your wrist, as you can see. I have noticed zero cuff interference whatsoever with this glove. I did notice that in the past with this one. For me, if you keep your hand out here, it's totally fine, as you can see. But once you turn your hand and kind of go up, a lot of people do with this type of break angle and glove shape, they kind of go like this. This was starting to get in the way, specifically on the old one, which I guess I should use that to show off. So when it went like this, you could see it's already touching my skin there. It definitely got in the way on bigger chest protectors, and you definitely noticed it. This one is opening up a bit to give you more wrist mobility and dexterity there. The backhand kind of clamshell is very similar, if not the same. Slightly different nylons. I'm not sure, I mentioned this on the blocker, if this is a thing where I think I might have had that like an early model nylon on here, but this is a more durable nylon, just like their pro player gloves, which I really like and is solid. And then we're gonna open this up. This one's kind of already opened up, but this one is the same way. Velcro here, undo there, and then undo this piece right here, and this part will slide out like that, and it's the same as this. So undo that one, this part slides out like that, and then finally it is this one inner piece right here, which undoes like this, just like the old one. The one thing I mentioned, and I made a post about it too, is for people to always order this piece, which is that extra wrist strap, because it is an extra add-on that you can just easily Velcro out if you want to, but it also comes with this strap as well that you can add into here, so you can actually strap it up on your wrist tighter if you want to. I don't like that. I think it's a bit too tight, but I love the strap so much so that I use it for something else. So I actually use that strap right here. As you can see, it's kind of making a new strap on the glove, which I'll talk about in a second. The rest of the strapping and the normal strapping is the same. Not sure if it's absolutely identical, but it feels very close. You have a piece that goes in here, here, over here, and that's kind of this piece with this Velcro piece right there, with a very nice soft gray nash all throughout the entire palm. I talked about this material a lot before, and I'll talk about it again. It's super comfortable to the touch. It's super soft, but when it gets wet after first game, it kind of becomes slimy, and it kind of loses its grip. Same thing with this. This one is a lot more worn out, so it's actually even softer than what that one is. I really can't play 2 games with this. My hand would just slip too much in it. I wish they just used a different material that wasn't quite as comfortable, but had a bit more grip performance on that for multiple games. You can see the strapping on here is that piece right there, and it has this piece right here on the fingertips, as well as it does have all those finger stalls in there. This is not a removable palm. It's one thing I like about this glove more than the removable palms. I like it sewn in. It just feels like it grabs a bit better onto the glove, and your glove doesn't feel like it's as detached. Some people might say they don't tell a difference. I just like that sewn in feeling a lot more. Since we're on here now, so I mentioned this strap, which is that removable one. I also did this in the past where I removed this piece is supposed to go through here. I kind of turned it over, as you can see, and attached it on here. My reasoning for that was I found with this glove, whenever you close it, I always felt like my fingers wanted to slide out like this. So this kind of added a little bit of tension right here that didn't really affect closure, but had enough tension on this piece to keep my fingers in the glove. So when I was closing it, it didn't feel like the glove was sliding off my hand like this. So that was a little tiny mod. That's not even a mod, right? The only annoying thing on this, that sticky Velcro was kind of cutting into my finger, which is super uncomfortable. Yes, I could have just put a different piece of Velcro on there to make it so it didn't stick, but I just left it, and this was a quick fix kind of test thing I wanted to try. What I decided to do with this one is try to make my own strap, and this is that piece that could normally go under here. And when you do put that under there, it gives you a little bit more padding as well. Warrior also included a little foam piece to stick in here for padding. I misplaced it right now. I can't remember where it is, but it is included. So if you don't want this piece in here, you can put a little piece in there that also gives you a bit more padding and kind of sticks your cuff away from the palm a bit, so it kind of comes out like this and forces that out more. I didn't like that feeling at all. I felt like when I kind of went in this position, it just kind of felt weird because the glove was kind of tilted more than I wanted it to, and I wanted that. So I took that out and unfortunately misplaced it since then and haven't really looked for it. This little strap thing, as you can see, what I've done on here is I took this piece and I kind of rewrapped this little attachment point right here. Now I could also just use this and keep it tighter and adjust it with this kind of piece in here, but I didn't want this big piece of plastic on like my knuckles or in the backhand, so I took that out to keep that as minimal as possible. So what I did, I took this strap out of this buckle and basically put it, as you can see, looped around itself and around these straps to hold it in place here, and then did the same thing on here. So as you can see, this piece isn't really touching down here, but it is grabbing on here and causing this to loop. Ideally, a better spot for it is right here versus where it was before. That way it can attach down there and attach on there, and it just gives a bit more pull right here. So my hands really can't slide out this way when closing, and honestly, this feels really good and really solid and doesn't really affect closure at all. It still closes pretty well. It's pretty comfortable because it does have that nice nash on the backhand too, and is honestly doing a pretty good job. The only thing I wish is if I could tighten this a bit more, but I might have to sew in another loop in here just to make it a bit tighter than what it currently is. But overall, even just having this little strap here just gives you a bit more tension here, so your fingers don't really feel like they're falling out. And I absolutely love this little tiny cheat of a mod. So also in back here that I absolutely love, it does have your finger loop. So it has a pinky loop right here. You can see the Gen Pro and Nash on there. It also has it on the thumb as well. So when you put it in there, it does have a nice little loop for it. And the thumb, you can kind of see in here a little bit. It has a nylon loop around as well as that loop. So it's very comfortable in here and feels really good overall. And I really like how this glove feels. But again, that softness kind of, I think, is a bad thing in terms of performance for kind of multiple games and stuff like that. Just because it's so soft, it doesn't grip quite as well as you would like. Now, talking about their adjustable liners. This is obviously that 90 degree. That glove is pretty famous right now. Everyone knows it as the 580. There's a Vapor 90, which is the newer version of it. There's a True and CCM 580s that everyone loves. And it's a mythical lore online because a bunch of social media people loved it and commented on it over and over again. And then people follow them. And here we are. I decided to get the 90 degree on this. I got the 75 on here because 75 is normally my favorite type of break angle. And I did have removable palms on the G5. I tested the removable palms. So I had the 75, I think it was a 60 and a 90. And I did a blind test on them, and I did a video of that. So you can check that if you want to see it. I didn't notice any differences. Now, this is a 75, this is a 90, but the core of the actual break angle doesn't change on the glove itself. It's basically really the finger stall positions that I've been told. And I have looked at this on gloves that have totally removable finger stalls next to each other, and I couldn't see a difference. And these are kind of laid out like this, and I cannot see a difference. Now, maybe these finger stalls are in a slightly different angle that is causing, I don't know. I can't tell the difference between these two palms. I put them both on and I close them in every way possible, and it just glove closes any way you want it to. That's how these gloves work. Warrior has been very good at that in the past, and they continue to be very good at that. Their gloves just close really well. So maybe this break point line is slightly different as well, but even then, that is on kind of the backhand padding where the core break angle itself isn't changing on the glove, so it kind of just has to follow that regardless. Maybe there's something different there. I can't tell a difference. I've tried. I now have 2.1 gloves with different break angles in them, and I can't tell a difference. This glove has a break angle. It's going to follow it regardless of the liner. And in my opinion, from what I can see, I use a ton of gloves. I can tell you really quickly what gloves I like and what they feel like, and I'm generally spot on with that. It says it's a 90 degree. It, to me, feels like a 60 degree and a 590 more than anything else. And you can see that closure doesn't have that crazy T closure, which you're kind of famous for, of having like that T being on a different angle of the thumb. It really feels like a 590. And I know 580s are the gloves people want to have and everything. And the shape of it sort of kind of looks like a 580 a bit, but it doesn't have that kind of closure that's famous and known for, and it doesn't feel like it when I'm closing it. I've had people ask me over and over again of what socks I always recommend, and I've been using Cutshield for a while now. I have multiple stuff from them. So Cutshield is a company out of Canada that makes cut resistant socks, and these are their Pro Air 6, which means it's an ANSI level 6 for cut resistance on here. Full review of it up there so you can check it out. But I now have a coupon code with Cutshield, so if you want to support the channel, you can check out the link in the description to Cutshield, buy some socks, which I think are honestly one of the better socks on the market. I absolutely love them. They're pretty thin and they are cut resistant and they're not too hot either. Use my coupon code, you get 25% off, and it helps support the channel. So for closure, this glove has not been broken in at all, and as good as Warrior gloves are for closure out of the box, especially for the protection level, this is a broken in glove, and this glove wasn't used a crazy amount, but it closes ridiculously easy. It's super soft. Look at that. It's so simple, and it is really solidly padded in there. So it's one of the better padded gloves on the market for like a game ready palm. Actually, it's probably one of the best game ready palms there is on the market. So for closure, this thing has only been used once. It has a few puck marks on it, but it hasn't been broken in at all yet. And closure is good and solid, but it's not crazy good like the other one, just because, like I said, that hasn't been broken in yet. And this is one of the better ones on the retail shelf, so I won't call that out. A few things I want to call out though specifically about that is this strap I find does actually a lot for closure. This piece, while it is elastic, you can definitely see it pulling and that kind of playing there, but it definitely feels like it gets in the way when it is too tight there. Like this part feels like it's getting in the way. Fix this, and what I do, I make this as loose as possible, so that way this has no tension on it and doesn't feel like it gets in the way at all, and closes a lot better with that. The other thing with that is my little adjustment piece on the backhand, that little strap I have. If it's too tight, it definitely keeps the glove from folding over the way you want it to. As you can see, it folds really well. I had to loosen it a little bit on my first adjustment, so it works a lot better that way. Now, I talked about this previously for actual glove break angle closure. Here's the thing I want to say about this. Warrior gloves are so easy to close, and they close like pretty consistently, just the way that they're made and everything. You can close this any way you want. If you want to do index finger to thumb like this, glove closes like that, no problem. If you want to do middle finger to thumb like this, glove closes like that, no problem. If you want to do full hand closure like this, so you have your middle finger coming down to your palm, also closes totally fine. Now this one is a little bit harder to close than those other two, but it's not bad and not awkward. That's what I'm talking about with this glove and Warrior gloves, with how it's not really a 580. It doesn't have that kind of kink that 580s have. It doesn't have that closure feeling that a 580 does to me whatsoever. It feels straight up like a 590 and a 60 degree, which I have a bunch of. And I said that for the 7.1. Even with the 75 degree break angle on here, it does not feel like that style of glove. This glove feels like that style of glove, and that has a 75 in here as well, but that's a removable liner. But this glove, just the shape and the closure of this feels more like that 45, 55, 75 degree glove that people know of, that 600 style. This to me is a 590 through and through. You have that straight closure. It doesn't feel like it kind of comes over on itself at all, and it just feels normal, and it feels totally good. When you open this up a lot like this, it kind of has that 580 shape to it. I'm not going to lie to that. You can see how it's like longer down here. It's kind of how a 580 kind of shape looks, but the closure isn't that. And honestly, I think this glove is fantastic. And if you completely want a 580 and you're like, I need a 580, this might not be the closure for you, but you should probably try it. because the glove is solid overall. The shape is probably something that you're looking for. And honestly, that closure is probably something better than what you're looking for compared to the other ones, and it's just a solid glove. So I definitely recommend people looking at it. It's a fantastic glove. It closes really well, and I'm really impressed with what this is. So huge props to Warrior on this. Slight improvement, especially on that more open cuff and the stiffer cuff here. Really excited to use this set a lot, which will be coming. So make sure you check out for the videos on that, and I'll do a full tutorial on that kind of glove piece in a separate video, just so people don't have to watch this whole thing to see it. So if you're really interested in that, you can see that as well too. So that's about it for this video. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful. If it was helpful, please let Warrior Goalie on social media know that it was helpful, and that way hopefully I can make more content and do more videos like this in the future. It's been awesome seeing the evolution of basically Warrior gear and getting to the point where it is now, where it's very, very good, and I'm very impressed with it, and it's easy for me to recommend, so that's saying a lot for me. Remember to check out the videos on the blocker and the pads. Those are already out. Full reviews of all this stuff will be coming down once I get usage of it. I already have the first skate with it, which just has a net cam, so you can see how kind of the pads work, so you can check that out as well. Thank you very much for watching this video. Remember to like this video, subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram and TikTok, links in the description. If you want to support the channel, if you live in Canada, check out the links in the description to Hockey Supremacy. If you're in the US, Pure Hockey. Clicking those links, making a purchase gives me a kickback, so I can make more content and do more videos like this. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without buying anything hockey related, check out the links in the description to buy me a coffee and Patreon. Everything through any of those links always comes back into the channel, so I can keep making more content and doing more reviews. Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.